Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the special board meeting of the Ross Valley Sanitary District Order, April 2nd, 2020, open session at 1:30 p.m. Roll call.
Gaffney?
Here.
Kelly? Director Kelly, are you here?
I am here, yes.
Megs?
Yes.
Scylla?
I'm here.
Borstein?
Yes, ma'am, here.
All present, thank you.
Okay, if everybody will please point their attention to Tom, who will hold up that American flag and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Pledge
of
allegiance.
the America and to the republic one nation, indivisible.
Liberty and justice.
That's the one. Okay.
Oski's the color guard.
So where do in this agenda, where do we, if there's any public here? I don't see any public. Seeing no public, we'll pass over that piece of the agenda. Item 2, consideration of adopting resolution number 20-1582, designation of applicant's agent resolution for non-state agencies.
Yes, actually, Felicia, is it okay? Hand it over to you to describe this to the board.
Yes, thank you. So the board adopted an emergency resolution a couple of weeks ago in response to the coronavirus pandemic, and that has evolved, as I'm sure the board is acutely aware, over the last couple of weeks. A couple of days after the emergency resolution was passed, staff was advised by FEMA, Cala OES, that there would be federal funding available for coronavirus related expenses if the district was interested in pursuing an application for those to be reimbursed. And we are recommending that we're interested in federal reimbursement. RGS simultaneously reached out to us and said that they had staff who have a particular expertise in this area, a senior advisor by the name of Hazel Joannis, I believe her last name is. She actually has worked for FEMA for a number of years before joining the team at RGS. So we executed a contract with RGS for their services. Their services would also be, the cost for their services would also be reimbursable under the federal financial assistance offerings. And so part of this process is to ask the board to approve a resolution, which would be part of our application process, authorizing RGS staff to make the application on behalf of the district. And if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Sure, I do.
Okay,
Pam, what do you foresee as a claim or application? What would
That's a
we
great question.
ask FEMA for? I mean, I'm
Right.
familiar with Fairfax and, you know, floods and what have you. So
Right. So we've actually been tracking all of our expenses that have accumulated since the governor's order in mid-March. They're everything from small, equipment purchases, literally, computer cables that people who are working from home have needed to purchase in order to set up their offices at their house functionally. Those would be eligible for reimbursement. communications expenditures that have gone out to Ross Valley Sanitary District ratepayers regarding wipes, clogged pipes as kind of a reminder during this period of time when people are sheltering in place, that only toilet paper goes down the toilet. We can ask for reimbursement for those costs. We actually just put an order into Gold Street Designs for the vehicle, I forget what they're called, like the laminate signs that go on the vehicles advising our ratepayers that when we're out in the field, we're still observing our 6-foot minimum social distancing. All of those accumulated costs are reimbursable expenditures that we can apply to through FEMA as examples.
I'm surprised. I'm pretty
How about,
surprised. I thought it was for catastrophes and, okay. I learned something.
Any additional disinfectants actually would also be eligible for reimbursement. The additional cleaning services that we're using for our offices would be reimbursable. It's funny, there are little things kind of everywhere that touch every part of our operation, but they do add up.
I know, but
yeah.
I don't mean to give you a hard time, but I'm just thinking of a lot of people out there that are not a federal public agency, and they're having to spend all this money, and I don't think they're going to get reimbursed. But anyway, what will it cost for the consultant to pull this together?
So they charge an hourly
$150
basis.
an hour?
I'm sorry?
Was it $150 an hour?
Yes, it's $150 an hour.
And how many hours do you think?
Well, that's hard to say, but I suspect it would cost, I think a reasonable expectation would be 20 to 40 hours of help with the district, assembling documentation, making the application, answering questions from the state or federal agencies that are processing those applications. And again, all of their time is also potentially reimbursable.
Yeah, and we want to piggyback on this contract to have them document things we're doing. We'll go over it a little bit in the update on the emergency about all the different things we're doing can be known as a COVID-19 exposure control plan, which is a Cal OSHA expectation of public agencies, and RGS will be well positioned to help us assemble all the things we are doing. We are implementing a plan, but to actually have it documented in place. So, that's an example. A task you could have RGS do, and then, keeping track of that time, and then applying to FEMA to help pay for it.
My understanding from Steve and talking to him, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that a lot of this we're doing right now currently, when we enter the time that time or expense gets entered into our systems, they are currently being coded as for the COVID-19, as a COVID-19 expense. So we're currently tracking everything, including whatever may come into the future, which we are unaware of. But at this point in time, we're just prepared, we are letting FEMA know we're here.
Felicia?
Yes.
Felicia?
Yes.
How about the Comcast commercials? Are those reimbursable?
I would say anything that was produced or distributed or published as a result of the coronavirus after the March 17th or so governor's order, I would apply for it, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if they'll get reimbursed. It's one thing to apply for the reimbursement. It's another thing to actually get approved for the reimbursement, but I think we should make an application for it.
Yeah, we'll include it. Also include the production development costs too.
Good.
Anybody else, Mary or Tom?
No.
Nope.
Sounds good to me, right? If there's money to be had, you should apply for it.
So do I hear a motion?
I would move to allow the staff to move forward with applying for FEMA reimbursement funds as per the agenda item.
Quick question before, do you all want to put a cap on this, or do you want to just, you know, I guess it's between $2,000 and $4,000, something like that for the consultant?
Yeah, 40
At
hours.
150 an hour, 20 hours is 3,000. Do we want to put a cap on this?
I don't know that we could know in advance what the cap would be. I would say my opinion is it'll be between 20 and 40 hours, give or take. And if it becomes more than that, Steve will certainly let us know, or Felicia will let us know, and we'll come back and re-examine it again.
40 hours.
All right. Go ahead, Doug.
I said 40 hours seems pretty high, but you know, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I would expect that somebody who worked for FEMA can do this in a lot less than 40 hours. But
Well, and most municipalities, they do it themselves. They don't have a consultant do it. They do it
the
themselves.
reason you have from RDS FEMA do it is because they're good at it, and so that should take less time. But you know, I leave it to them not to rip us off. I agree with the 40. You know, Mike, you mentioned if it's more than 40, let's come back. 40 seems awfully high, but I'd be willing to go that high. It's not. It doesn't end up being that much money, and it's reimbursable. But I do think, you know, if it's taken them 40 hours, we should have done it ourselves.
Doug, if it's okay with you, I'm going to read the motion back to you, and you tell me whether it's what you meant. That we adopt resolution number 20-1582, designating RGS staff as the district's agent to apply for FEMA reimbursement funding, specifically related to emergency expenditures incurred as a result of the California COVID-19 disaster. That is what you meant, right?
I move that with the direction to staff that they alert us if it comes to more than 40 hours.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Wait a second, I didn't understand. Did you modify it?
I did. I modified it that we're directing staff to alert us if it takes more than 40 hours.
To alert us.
We maybe have another meeting, maybe we won't.
Okay.
But if we're alerted,
Well,
we can decide whether
Well,
to call a meeting.
we have
I
a
don't want
meeting. We have a
them to-
meeting on the 22nd. I mean,
Yeah, I just want to offer something for practical considerations. You know, I would just remind the board that what you're doing is making an official determination that to FEMA that RGS can act on our behalf. We can still interact with FEMA, as you know, I'm doing on the 9 Summit emergency as an example. So it's not that we're not going to do the interaction, it's that we think it's a good idea to go ahead and empower RGS because they're working on behalf of a multitude of other agencies, so they can make sure what we're doing is consistent. And by having them under contract, we can do, the example I gave you was, it's really helpful to have a COVID-19 exposure control plan. And that's like I saw an example of this, it's like a 10-page document that, sure, you know, we could possibly put together in-house, but we're working on a lot of other things, as you know, and RGS is doing it for many other agencies and can do it very efficiently too. That might bump us above 40 hours, plus or minus, but as you pointed out, it is an expense that's well within the GM authority for expenditures. So it's not a move the needle type of thing, and moreover, it's reimbursable from FEMA. So it actually, in the long run, won't come out of the bottom line of this agency. So I just want you to consider those things as you consider, you know, direction about the number of hours executed on a given contract.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with everything you said, Steve. I don't think there's anything in conflict. We're just asking you to alert us if it's more than 40 hours.
Sure.
Okay. Julia?
So I just want to make sure that the motion and second was Kelly and Meg's.
I made the motion.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great,
I second.
great. Roll call, Gaffney, Director Gaffney, how do you vote?
Take it off mute.
Oh,
Tom, you're on mute.
Did you ask me? I can't hear you, Julia.
Yes,
I
I'm
vote
sorry,
yes.
Director. Aye, okay,
Yes.
thank you. Kelly,
Yes.
Megs,
Yes,
Scylla,
Aye.
Borstein.
yes, aye.
Great, unanimous vote, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Review, item 3, review and determine a need to continue the emergency action adopted in resolution number 20-1581, declaring a state of emergency and authorizing expenditures related to the global coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19. No staff report. Steve.
Yeah, I'm hoping the board is interested in an update at this time. You did ask when we declared the emergency on March 18th that I would give an update every 2 weeks or so, was my understanding. And so it's been about 2 weeks. And it's a good time to give you an overview of actions that we've taken with emergency authority. Maybe I'll just point out, first of all, we have issued no contracts. And it's often used in the case if we need to do a sole source contract for some kind of services, traditionally in construction, that in an emergency situation, this emergency authority gives us that level of liability. We haven't exercised that aspect of the authority. We exercised the emergency authority to maintain salary and benefits for all our employees while having modified work assignments. And so I wanted to go over what that has looked like. And Felicia touched on it a little bit in her overview of what we're doing operationally. So I'll begin by saying that in this pandemic setting, we are maintaining operations and maintaining operational functionality. We're not concerned as much with productivity per se. We want to be productive, but we're focusing our staff on the issue, are we conducting operations? Because under the initial health order from March 16th from the County of Marin, we were defined as an essential government function, and that was reiterated by the governor's order on March 19th. So what does that mean, right? It's something that we need to reckon with. What happened, you may have heard, March 31st, 2 days ago, there was a new health order from the county, and it modified what was allowed to be conducted as an essential business with relation to construction. And so I might get into more detail on that, but it still maintains that operations and maintenance of essential services such as water and sewer, as an example, are supposed to continue. So I'll give you a little anecdotal story. Aaron Dillingham. Aaron is one of our inspectors. Today at 5 a.m., he was pulled over by a California highway patrolman on his way to work. Asked, what are you doing? He's like, oh, here's my badge. I'm going to work. I'm an essential service. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day. So that happened today. And so our workers are essential workers in this environment. So what we've done over the last couple of weeks, we tried in our current setting at Kerner and Larkspur Landing to do a normal shift, but try to do the 6 feet social distancing and all the necessary hygiene that goes along with this. And we found on Monday, the 23rd, things were uncomfortable. It just, the way our floor plans work and the donning and doffing of equipment, it was just too crowded. So over the last 2 work weeks, we've had a limited staff come in, 2 collection system workers and 1 supervisor to do, and really to distill what's essential maintenance versus, you know, the list of things that constitute our operations. We're really, you know, everything's essential, right? When it comes to sewers and, you know, repairs and camera work and all that stuff we do. But when it comes right down to it, in this type of emergency setting, what are the things we must do that are absolutely essential? And that would be line maintenance and pump station maintenance. You know, there's no question those things under the health order need to happen. And what we learned with only having the skeleton crew to really maximize social distancing and employee worker health, we had service calls, some of which are on private laterals, that have taken all of that workforce and diverted it from our essential functions. So taking another look at what we can do within the confines of our memorandum of understanding with the union, and we're working with them closely, and we're on the cusp, right, Felicia, of having an approach that we're going to start on Monday, where we really focus on essential activities. So the folks that would do repair and camera work are not going to do that now, because that you can't meet social distancing and do that work. They're going to be moved into a line maintenance function, and then we're going to maintain the pump station maintenance. You know, the ragging of the pumps to make sure our wastewater gets to CMSA, whether or not people start flushing more wipes down the toilet or not. So we're going to have more hours actually going into next week than we've had, and it may seem a little counterintuitive because, you know, the wave these days is to do less and less, but we think by staggering the start time, and, you know, folks want to go back to work, they want to maintain, you know, the essential services that we provide, and we're all fortunate to have employment in this setting, in these emergency conditions, and people want to go back to work. And so we've got a proposal to do less hours per day, but staggered, and then Fridays off because the coronavirus on metal and plastic surfaces lasts up to 72 hours. So by having this weekly cool off period, we're protecting the health of the workers and controlling spread by taking a 3-day weekend. So those are examples of the modified work that are under discussion. It's not final yet, but we're going to let the board know. We're trying to meet the dual goals of operational functionality in an essential government function and protecting our employees, maintaining social distancing and washing our hands constantly and washing surfaces where we're working. Now, that's 2/3 of our workforce. How about the other third, the administrative staff? We've received a template for a telecommuting policy, and we're implementing that policy on an individualized basis. And we're making sure the employees have equipment at home they need to perform their essential job functions. So each employee's got their own needs. You know, some like to have larger screens and need certain cords. You know, and maybe they have a desktop, they want to have a laptop. We're working through all those details, and those are COVID-related expenses that we will ask for reimbursement for. And then I believe Felicia's working on an updated sick leave FMLA document for staff and frequently asked questions, so that you know, everybody's still maintaining their essential job function. But if they need to take extra leave for this emergency for whatever reason, there's a clear path that's consistently applied throughout the organization. Felicia mentioned we're tracking, our accounting department is tracking every expense to see if it's a COVID-related expense. And I see this day in and day out. It's a steady stream of things. And a quick note on construction. This is an evolving situation. If you'd asked me 2 days ago, I would have said, yeah, any capital project by a water sewer agency is exempt, you know, as long as social distancing and hygiene requirements are met on site, they're under control of the contractor. We just check to make sure, like with OSHA requirements, that they're meeting those things. As of March 31st, construction was severely limited in this state. There's an exception for essential infrastructure, which we are, and yet there are these two words, immediate and necessary. And that's where the debate is, you know, what capital project for sewer infrastructure that protects public health and the environment is immediate and necessary to build. You ask one group in one town, they'll say one thing. You ask another, they'll say another. You know, East Bay Mud's got an approach. Zone 7 Alameda County's got another approach. So confusion reigns. But I think bringing this back to common sense, if we have an existing project that's underway, capital project, and it's incomplete, and as long as COVID exposure control measures are in place at the contract site, you know, you can do that work 6 feet apart. You can have PPE that controls spread, and you can get work done. And so we're doing that in Larkspur, Creekside HOA. That project goes on because we're mid-project. Victory Village is wrapping up in Fairfax. That's another one that's underway. And then there's the Lower Shady Lane Poplar project in Ross that's underway. Those are 3 examples of projects that are underway with that we believe can continue with all the precautions in place. But the latest guidance, and I talked with MMWD's GM today, is really we're not likely to start new capital projects with this current health order in its current state. So just want to give everybody some clarity there. And I think that, you know, that makes sense in terms of being part of a consistent message between water and sewer agencies. So that's an ongoing discussion about where you draw the line, and just sharing with you that nuance that we're all working through. And then I want to cover one final thing. I didn't have a chance to brief you last board meeting, but we were a big part of that public communications that happened nationwide, believe it or not. Sandeep Karkal, the GM of Novato Sanitary District, contacted me the day of the health order on March 16th and requested on behalf of the other GMs in the county who had experienced overflows from wipes and paper towels. They requested me to contact the water board to do a preventive messaging for wipes and other things that shouldn't be flushed. And I contacted the water board. Their public affairs drafted a message, and the governor's office approved the message the next day on March 17th. It was published nationwide. The New York Times picked it up. You know, we were interviewed, the Las Colinas and Nevada were interviewed on TV and in the newspapers, and it had a reverberating effect around the country as far as this message of what not to put down the toilet. And at the same time, we got Gold Street mobilized that same day, and by the end of the week, we had a new commercial that was coronavirus focused, and that went on the cable TV. We restarted that campaign, and by Tuesday the 24th, that was on TV. So it's on TV now. So yeah, you mentioned that earlier. Those expenses to develop the new commercial, we actually brought on the 3 other sanitary districts: Sausalito, Marin City, SASM, and SD5 of Tiburon. They all got on board for this 3-month public communication blitz, and their logos. I just approved the modification of the commercials to include their logos. It took some time, took a little bit of money. That's on the list. And so we are going on, and that through that communication effort and CASA getting involved, our public outreach materials, the wipes, clogged pipes, and the new coronavirus have been picked up by other municipalities. So Modesto is an example. And Supervisor Katie Rice, as well as the town of Fairfax, put a link in their newsletter on coronavirus to our wipes, clogged pipes commercial, the one that won the award with the busy mom and the flushable wipes, which I guess, by the way, that was tomorrow. We were supposed to receive that award from CWA as the second place public engagement community outreach project of the year in California. So anyway, I think it's worth mentioning is that we're within our group of Marin sanitary districts, we catalyzed a nationwide discussion, and that was great to be a part of.
So Steve, what do we need to do to determine a need to continue the emergency action adopted? Is that something that we need to take a vote on and do a motion and a second? Andrea, or
Yeah,
what do we need?
I think I think the conservative path here is that at each board meeting, just like at your special board meeting last week, you continue to move that the emergency continues to exist, and that the authorities that you gave in the original emergency resolution they continue. I mean, technically, it's the law requires that you do it at every regularly scheduled meeting, but the statute also requires that if any contracts are entered into that would normally go through public bidding but don't, then the board needs to talk about that within 7 days. So out of an abundance of caution, I think we'll put it on the agenda, and you guys should just have a motion every time you meet that says the emergency is ongoing.
So if there are no more questions, we can still go
No,
back.
I have some questions. Are you going to open it to questions?
Let me ask a question. Are we talking about
Okay.
ongoing? Wait, Pam, please let me finish.
Yeah, go
It's
ahead.
hard with everybody here. We have two items going on here. We've got the informational items, which is what I think Steve had moved on to, which is good. But we also have item 3, which is review and determine a need to continue. And so that's just, this is just a bookkeeping thing. We'll have plenty of time for questions. I think we need to just, as a board, say, do we need to continue this emergency resolution until the
All right.
emergency?
Are you gonna allow questions after that? Because I have some questions
for
for what Steve
for
just
four.
reported on.
We have,
Okay,
we have
that's
4
all I wanted to know.
informational items. As near as I can tell, this is just bookkeeping. Do we need to continue the emergency resolution? So let's do that, and then we'll go back to the informational items and plenty of time for questions. So do I hear a motion that we can continue the emergency declaration?
I move we continue the emergency declaration.
I second.
Julia?
Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly, Megs,
Yes,
Scylla,
Yes.
Borstein.
Yes.
I got a verbal confirmation of Director Kelly's vote, but I did not hear his vote. His audio may not currently be working. Thank you for everyone's votes.
Okay, back to Steve. Can
I wanted
open
to,
it?
yeah, I meant to ask Felicia if there was anything else she wanted to add to my overview, because there's a lot of details of work we're doing to be responsive in the pandemic.
I appreciate that, Steve. But I think you covered everything that we wanted to give the board an update on, but I'm happy to answer questions if any of the board has any.
And thank you for doing the work.
Okay.
Pam, go for it.
I was just curious on the 3-day weekend. Are we cutting the employees' work hours? Or are they getting vacation hours, or what are we doing with that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we have, what we've been doing is coding for those who have a job description where they are not able to work from home, which includes the collection system workers. They charge administrative leave for those hours that they aren't otherwise working in the field. And so they've been doing that up to now, and that's the proposal for the Friday hours, as well as hours that don't make up a full 8-hour day during the week.
These are all of the workers that are union, right?
That's right. I believe so. Is that right, Felicia?
So we're
Yes.
So we're paying them 8 hours administrative time, right?
Yes,
But they're not working.
correct.
How does the union know that?
Yes. Yes, and it's consistent with what other
Great.
agencies are doing throughout the Bay Area that I've been involved with many interagency conversations.
Yeah. Some places
Sorry.
will let you take leave without penalty, but you have to use your vacation hours. You don't get free paid. Some are like that. Some aren't. So that's why I'm bringing it up. This could go on for 3 to 6 months, is what it's looking like. So I'm just, did we look at cost, and is this, I'm just wondering what the plan is, because I don't know how many employees, I don't know what the cost that will be. So I'm just throwing that out there, that I do know that some are not just giving administrative leave. And then if you use all your
Do you know which
vacation
ones they
time-
are, Pam?
No, I can't think right now. But I'm just wondering, anyway, that's just an idea for the future. We don't have to do anything now. And then what my job is doing, if you're over 65 and you want to take time off, you can without penalty. So I don't know what the workforce, the age is, but if you have a medical issue or whatever, but that's a little different than a hospital, obviously. But it's very creative out there. There's a whole bunch of different things happening in different agencies. So,
Yes.
And then all the equipment that we're paying that's outside of the district, will that equipment come back to the district, or will that be
Absolutely.
your personal? Okay.
No.
That's all.
No,
Thank
that
you.
all gets returned to the district.
Okay, Pam, yesterday I participated in the CWEA webinar, and I don't know what districts you're referring to, but all the ones who for an hour and a half were talking about it yesterday were talking exactly what Steve said. East Bay Mud in particular, one of our neighbors, is actually giving their workers up to 80 hours extra administrative leave during this time to accommodate for that, to make sure of their safety, that you want to make sure that maintaining the social distancing anyway is a big long conversation. And so I don't know, I can just tell you that on the conference call with the Zoom meeting yesterday with all of the agencies from CASA and SIWA all over California, they were talking about the need to do exactly what Steve was saying, which is, cutting back, making sure that, for non-essential items, that if a district then has an essential item, that we have the staff to take care of it at that time. And they all felt that, if it means you have to, give or take a little bit, that's what you got to do in this time of crisis. Period. But East Bay Mud is the best example that I can think of where they were talking is that. And from what I can see, Steve is doing exactly the East Bay Mud model.
Thank you.
Anything else, Steve?
No, thank you very much. You know, we're adapting that to our physical locations, you know, that we really look office by office. Where can we get 6 feet distancing? Where do we need to put up a wall? And then how do we stagger the time so we don't interact with each other unnecessarily? So while there are great models out there like that, we look at the Ross Valley facilities and fit our work to these facilities.
I might also just mention that in that conference call yesterday, one of the things they made clear, because you've read some stuff in the papers recently about being able to detect the virus in sewage. And what they specifically said is that's not the case. What you can detect is the RNA remnants of the virus, and that basically what they said is that our workers are not being exposed to active virus in the sewage, and continue with our normal things that we consider essential. And they also said while maintaining social distance. So I think that Steve and Felicia and our staff are all really trying to do that.
Well, the new thing now is masks, so that's a new thing. They're saying you should use masks, but that's another story.
Okay, well, I think that's kind of it.
I would move to determine a need to continue the emergency action adopted in resolution number 20-1581, declaring a state of emergency and authorizing expenditures related to the global coronavirus disease 2019.
We did that already.
No,
And
we
you
did.
verbally
Where did I
went
miss
like
that?
this. Huh?
Okay. I missed it.
We did it.
But it's just as good the second time, Doug.
Thank you very much.
You're okay,
If there's
Doug.
nothing else, if
Nope.
there's nothing else, I move to adjourn this meeting until another further time.
Stay safe and healthy.
And
Bye-bye.
Julia, you'll have this, the document that Tom needed to sign. It should be in your email already. And Steve, that other document is in your email, so I think we're all good to go. Meeting
Thank you,
adjourned.
President Borstein.
Good to
Thank
see
you
you
all.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.